Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Core Productions. My co-host Stacie here to talk about the original Quantum Leap, Season 4, Episode 2, titled Play Ball. The episode's description reads as follows. As Lester Doc Fuller, a former Major League pitcher, stuck back in the minors again, Sam must get a hotshot rookie ball player back on the right track and away from drinking and self-destruction. In the meantime, Sam also has to ward off advances from his team's owner and his daughter. And I got
daughter.
Her daughter. Yes, not his daughter. That would make this an entirely different episode. So yeah, I got that episode description off of alsplace.com. Usually I just do it from Internet Movie Database, but the episode description from Internet Movie Database was terrible.
Sometimes it is. Yeah.
Yes. There were two of them, and both of them were just awful. So I didn't use either one of them. I just went to...
So you actually, proofed what you had this time?
Yes.
Because there's been a couple times you've read the description.
And I'm like, ugh, this is awful. Yeah. So this time I read both of them, and I'm like, no, I'm not using either one of these. But anyway, the episode was written by Tommy Thompson. He was last responsible for Heart of a Champion. Mm-hmm. That was an episode I did not particularly care for. This one is I have a certain amount of fondness for it, mainly because I guess that one was a wrestling episode, so I didn't particularly care about that episode. And this one is more baseball, which I appreciate more. Fan. Exactly.
Yeah. See, now I'm still in the It's a Sport episode category. So
I will have more to say about that in a moment. The episode was directed by Joe Napolitano. Now, according to Jessie, his daughter, these two were best friends. Now, it's interesting.
That's Tommy's daughter.
Yes, Tommy's daughter. What's interesting is that Tommy Thompson would go on to executive produce 4 episodes of Sequest DSB. Joe Napolitano did episode 3 of that series. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Also in that series was Royce the Applegate, who appears in this episode, and actually also was in another episode of Quantum Leap, The Color of Truth, in a very different role in that episode. He played like a sheriff who was kind of a not a nice guy, I would say. But yeah, and Royce the Applegate was also in Sequest DSB as a series regular for season 1. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I think both those connections led to that happening in Sequest DSB, at least for the first season. All right, so the episode takes place on August 6, 1961, and originally aired on September 25th, 1991. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a sport for you podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please follow, and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Core Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. Alright, so this is the first episode to air after the cancellation of the new series.
Yes.
And it seems to have had the effect of basically sending the other Quantum Leap podcast to do other things. Damon from Phantom Entanglement is going to be doing Sliders. We're eventually going to be doing something on that series.
Yeah, I think we'll put it on the back burner for a while since they're covering it now. But
the other, the actual Quantum Leap podcast is going to be doing Star Trek: The Next Generation, it seems.
But they're doing
a different channel.
So it's Albie and Chris are doing it.
Okay.
Trek-Exploration is the name of their new podcast.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty sure they're going to be touching on various Star Trek series.
So they're not going to be doing them in order?
I don't know.
You don't even know their exact plans. Yeah.
He sent me a link. I was like, you're funny. You're funny. Think I'm going to go watch some Star Trek stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you basically already had because your husband made you.
Yeah, exactly. Made me.
Right.
Made me. That's all I got on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so shout-outs this week. Brian Green from alsplace.com had a birthday
he
recently.
Did.
I forgot the exact date.
15th.
15th.
Tax Day.
Yes, okay. And so happy birthday to Brian Green. This is our first opportunity to, say that since then, because we haven't done a podcast
in a while.
Basically since, yeah. The last thing we did was Dawn, her dad, and the tractor.
Right, which was about 2 weeks ago almost. And last time we talked Quantum Leap, I think it's been 3.5, 4 weeks since we talked Quantum Leap. And interestingly enough, we went from baseball leap to baseball leap.
Yes.
Which we did not do on purpose, but that's how it worked out.
Yeah, it's that's pretty funny. Basically we covered the first episode of the series. We went back and looked at that for the 35th anniversary. And so, yeah, there's that. Ashley Wright commented on the cancellation of Quantum Leap, saying, don't they know that you guys have a podcast to do?
Right?
I know, right? Why don't they consider my feelings before doing this?
I have one more birthday announcement to make.
Okay.
Doesn't particularly fit here, but since we're doing birthday greetings, John Cryer had a birthday.
Oh, that's interesting.
On the 16th.
Okay.
John Cryer, of course, in one of the other series that we cover, Extended Family.
And by the way, that's not the last time we're going to bring that up.
Which we're still waiting to hear if that's going to come back or be canceled by NBC. Yes. They haven't announced that one yet. And yes, we do have an extended family connection in this episode.
Yes, we do.
So that's fun. I love that all of our stuff always seems to intertwine each other.
It does.
It almost feels like we have some plan as to what we cover.
No, yeah, it seems like we do, but we very much do not. We're just kind of randomly throwing things at the wall. All right, Mimi Gallic says it's funny that in the pilot, which we covered last time, Al wouldn't reveal to Sam his last name, and in the Leap Back, which is the episode prior to this one that we're talking about today, Sam was very quick to just tell Al his last name. And you had an explanation for that seemed to fit during that podcast, right?
I don't remember. It's been too long.
Okay, so basically, if I remember correctly, you said that basically Sam had to get Al up to speed quicker in this situation that they were in, as opposed to the pilot episode.
Right. I mean, it wasn't a regular leap. It was a dilemma for them, as opposed to, here's the new normal. I mean, it could have been the new normal. It might have been fun if they tried that for a little bit, at least.
We made the argument that they should have.
Yeah, at least a few episodes it would have been fun before we fixed things back to status quo.
And speaking of the 35th anniversary special, Deb Bury loved it. She appreciated our podcast on it. Deb Bury is, of course, someone who is in the Facebook groups that we regularly see and is a friend of both of ours, I believe.
Yes.
I think I'm friends with her.
And she's even in the special.
Yes, she is. She makes an appearance.
She's in the extended version of the special.
She didn't get me her clip in time to actually include it in the original version, but she did it slightly after that, and I re-edited the special itself, which I aired the next day, to include her in that. Alpha said, my first year of medical school, and this is regarding the pilot, in 1998, I remember encountering alcohol's effect on oxytocin and delaying labor. After a moment, I suddenly remembered Peggy drunkenly singing in the first episode of Quantum Leap and laughing out loud in the library. It's true, beta symphonetics, that's my closest guess on that one. What we usually call beta agonists will inhibit uterine contractions. So that's from Alpha. That's his contribution.
Well, thank you, Alpha, for your
input.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting here is that he was in medical school in 1998. That was 2 years before I graduated. So I'm assuming that makes him about 6 years older than us.
Well, I mean, it depends
when you start medical school.
Depends where he was in medical school. Medical school's a big category.
Right. Well, you said his first year. So I'm assuming you have to go through 4 years of college before going to medical school, or you just go right into medical school. You have no idea.
I think it could go either way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Alpha, if he's listening, he can certainly answer that question. But that also means that Alpha is a doctor, so that's two very interesting pieces of information about him.
Yeah. Maybe we should start doing spotlights on our viewers.
Yeah. There we go. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
All right, so like I said, we're still stuck in baseball, which I felt a little weird taking these notes because I was like, this is so kind of odd that we're doing this right after doing the other baseball episode. And I don't even know if my mind's going to remember which thing is which because, my notes literally include lines like, baseball happened. Okay, so yeah. I know you usually depend on me for the details.
Right.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen today.
Okay.
At least not when we get to the actual ball playing of the play ball.
Well, for the most part, I pretty much skimp on those details. I don't think it's really necessary to be all right, and this person hit a ball.
But I can't follow along at all. I'm they're playing baseball. That's what's happening for the next 3 minutes.
It's not really relevant to the main story that this episode is trying to tell. We don't need to know the actual specifics of what happens in the game. All right, so I generally have fondness for this episode. It's something that I'm nostalgic for.
Okay.
There's one it has a similar problem as Heart of a Champion in that it has a subplot that doesn't quite work, and that would be the Sam and the owner deal. I think if you reverse the genders on that, we're all going to jail. that line, of course, comes from a meme. But yeah, if you reverse the genders on this, you wouldn't really appreciate that too much.
But you guys figure we're talking about 1961 in television, made in 1991.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying here is
today's conceptual view of these things is very different than it was in the 60s or the 90s.
I mean, yes. What I'm saying here is that in a modern context, I don't think this subplot would fly. And
most episodes wouldn't, to be perfectly honest.
Right, yeah. But at the same time, I think it's not quite as bad as Heart of a Champion because it doesn't overwhelm the episode and the main story that the episode is trying to tell. It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
And it's sort of there to create conflict between the person that Sam is there to actually help. But yeah, I mean, I do appreciate this episode.
It's another example of Sam knowing what he's supposed to do to help and Ziggy being completely clueless.
Yeah.
And Sam going completely off mission for the entire episode.
Right. And I think I had more to say about that later. But yeah, so I generally like this episode. It's definitely on the weaker side. It's definitely a step down from last week. Well, not the last week, not the last episode we covered, but the last episode
in
a week back. But it's still a decent episode. Yeah.
Fun fact about the date this episode takes place,
which
again is August 6, 1961. That was Lucille Ball's 50th birthday.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, she was born August 6, 1911.
Ooh,
which is not some factoid I found. I know that.
I
have that date deep in my heart as memorized since I was very young.
If she were still alive today, she would be quite old.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I would assume the oldest person alive. Anyway.
She died in 1989, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
She was not even alive when this aired. That's really sad.
That is sad. All right. So, I guess we'll just get right into it. Unless you have more to say.
Well, the biggest thing I have to say in general about this episode is I got really confused with this character list. The character list, actor list, call sheet, who these characters are, trying to reference who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I got very, very lost.
Okay.
And during that, I actually discovered a huge discrepancy in lots of source material.
Okay. And what was that discrepancy that
two of the actors were actually switched as to which roles they were playing.
Oh, okay.
And believe it or not, at the end of the day, IMDb was right.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So who was wrong?
Al's Place had it wrong.
Oh.
Beyond the Mirror Image has it wrong.
Did you bring it up to Brian? Unfortunately, we can't tell Matt.
But, I know, right?
Yeah.
I feel a little bad. I found an error in the book, and I can't, tell him so he can fix it in the next printing. So yeah, I was just super confused. So not only are the actors on two characters switched, but the characters were listed differently.
Okay.
So I'm going through the notes, and I just finished the episode, and I'm so normally I start with a list of characters.
Okay.
As I'm writing the notes, here's these people's names, right? And then by the end of the episode, I'm able to go back and check some of the actors and look at their credits or whatever. But at the end of the episode, I'm I still don't know who half these characters on this list are. And that's a problem because I've already finished my notes for the scene by scene. So I'm I don't know what's going on. I don't know who half these people are. And so now I'm trying to compare. I'm looking at both Al's Place and IMDb and trying to be who is this name versus this, who they are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm looking at the actors' names and I just got so confused. So yeah, I did. I messaged Brian and I was I need your help with this because I don't know if I'm crazy. I don't know if you're wrong. I don't know if IMDb is wrong, but I'm having this mental dilemma trying to unscramble what I'm reading here.
Gotcha.
And he was like, give me a second, let me consult my notes. And I know what he did is he went and looked at Matt's book and he's like, no, I'm right. This one is this one and this one's that one. IMDb's wrong. And I was totally ready to accept that, because we found IMDb to be wrong so often.
Sullivan's Crossing, right? Specifically.
Yeah, IMDb is definitely not perfect. So I was like, okay, cool. But then I was still like a little confused on like, well, but which character is this name, right? And then I was kind of like, oh, are 3 different people confused? Specifically, the name Kilpatrick was the credit on IMDb.
Okay.
And that actor was one of the actors that was swapped, because that name wasn't anywhere. So I was like, who is Kilpatrick, right?
I still don't know.
Turns out Kilpatrick is the Yankee scout.
Oh, okay.
Who's credited in some places as talent scout, and on IMDb was credited simply as Kilpatrick.
Interesting.
With the wrong actor's name on Al's Place and in Beyond the Mirror Image and on, some other like Quantum Leap Wiki pages.
Oh.
So I was looking at it deeper, right? And I'm still trying to understand the characters, and I'm still looking at this person's picture, and I was like, are you sure? Because this picture actually looks like that guy.
Right.
And so yeah, I kind of made Brian go dig a little deeper, and he started like watching the episode. And at the end of the day, he said, yeah, he had it wrong. IMDb was right. He fixed it on Al's Place, and I now have my name as a contributor on that episode guide page.
Nice.
So yeah.
So that was a worthwhile time.
It was a headache for sure. But at the end of the day, fairly certain that it's now corrected that the Yankee Scout, whose character's name is Kilpatrick, is played by Peter Jason.
Okay. And what was the other
and
actor?
Warren Monroe, which is Chucky's dad, is played by Casey Saunders.
Yes.
And those 2 were switched, like, in all sorts of places.
That's interesting. So I wonder where they all reference that to get it wrong.
Somebody got it wrong, and then it just kind of cascaded from there, I'm sure.
Mm.
But the funny thing is, it's been that way, for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
33 years.
And it took you 33 years later to catch the mistake.
I know, right?
And to put right what once went wrong.
I did. I fixed it.
Oh, okay.
I fixed it.
All right. So, you have anything else to say?
No, just I'm going to, half of my notes will be like, that guy, somebody, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, let's go dig into it now that we are 17 minutes in. Let's start the episode.
All right, so Sam leaps in wearing a baseball uniform and chewing on chewing tobacco, which he doesn't seem to like because he quickly vomits it out.
Yeah, and he's in a locker room.
A girl, Bunny, played by Courtney Gephardt. She has 33 acting appearances for her. The last project that she appeared in was back in 2010. She comes in, calling him Doc, and she starts stripping and trying to seduce Sam, and is interrupted by a bat boy played by Michael Belzerio, and that would be Donald Belzerio's son. He has 15 appearances for him, 5 on this series, including the series finale. Now, it's interesting to me that I guess Dean Stockwell did not give Donald Belzerio the same speech that he ended up giving to
Deborah.
Yeah, because
I mean, maybe he did, but
maybe Donald Belzerio just didn't listen.
Yeah,
and that was one of my favorite.
Well,
anecdotes.
Michael's a little older than Troyan, right?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. He's probably about like 13.
Yeah,
and she was like 4.
So yeah, he plays Billy the Bat Boy in this episode. You said he has 5 credits. I only have him in 4 places here. Kamikaze Kid, Tale of Two Sweeties, and Mirror Image.
There was another one.
Or maybe it's just the lead-in from one of those.
It's possible. Actually, you know what? You're right. Because the lead-in would have been from a week back. Actually, no, it wouldn't have, because we didn't see the preview for that. So, no. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. But, yeah, it said that he appeared in 5 episodes. Okay. So, yeah.
Maybe I just missed one.
Probably. Or maybe I'm just wrong. Oh, also, speaking of Troyan Belzerio, we were just sort of talking about, she was in the movie, and I was just happened to look into her credits for some reason before watching this episode. She was in a movie called Clara, a sci-fi film that I remember watching, and I enjoyed quite a bit. I don't remember really what it was about. But,
great endorsement, Dave.
But I watched that movie without realizing that was her.
Okay.
I didn't know it was Troyan Belzerio that I was actually watching back then. But, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, Bunny ends up saying, "Oh boy," and then we go to our credits. When we come back, we're at the baseball game, announced by Royce D. Applegate. I didn't even bother to get his character's name. I don't really care.
He's just credited as radio reporter.
All right, so for now on, he's Royce D. Applegate. He's playing himself in this episode as a radio announcer.
And you mentioned he was in the episode Color of Truth. I also have a note for him. He was in the movie Gettysburg, which I have to bring up because my husband's obsessed with that film, has made me watch it twice. It's like 6 hours long.
Yes.
He played...
How many bathroom breaks was that?
Oh, it probably took us 10 hours to get through, Uh-huh. He's Brigadier General James L. Kemper in that film.
Yeah, he has quite an extensive resume before he passed away, unfortunately. And I've talked about him before, which is why I didn't really do too big of a deep dive into him. But, and he doesn't really have much of a part in this episode, unfortunately. Yeah. But he's quite a prolific character actor for sure. So Sam's coach sends Sam to pinch hit, and he's a pitcher, by the way, and thus not a very good hitter. Pitchers tend not to be very good. The coach is played by Dan Stroud. He has 165 credits, including a recent 2020-23 appearance in the Magnum P.I. reboot. Sam ends up hitting a pitch, rounds the bases, but doesn't quite make it, as his slide attempt is just short, and he ends up out, and the game is lost. Helping him up is Chucky, played by Neil McDonough, who we recently saw in the episode of Extended Family. And I talked about him then, so I'm not going to bother bringing up his credits again.
Well, but I mean,
he was in...
It is a very different audience, so you could talk about him a little bit.
All right. Well, what I do remember seeing him for was Star Trek First Contact. He was a lieutenant in that episode that meets a very bad fate. He ends up Borgified. And he was also a villain in Justified, which, by the way, is interesting because later in my notes, I referenced the fact that Casey Sanders, who plays his dad in this episode, was actually in Justified. And in an episode with Neil McDonough, they do not share any scenes together.
Yeah. He also appeared in 5 episodes of The 100 with Eliza Taylor.
Oh, okay. So we have quite a few connections here.
Yeah. Quantum leap generational connection there.
All right. So his coach comes to chew him out for not stopping at second. Chucky defends him, and the coach goes off in a huff. A fan gives Sam some crap. He mentions why not use a gun. I'm not sure why that's an insult he decided to throw away.
Yeah, and he must be one of these characters who I didn't know who they were.
So Chucky takes exception to this and gets into a fight with him, while a mysterious figure watches from a distance, and he looks very disappointed. At the bus, the coach is telling the band... I didn't understand this entire scene. This is the band?
No, these are players.
Oh, okay.
So these are non-English speaking players. These are the players that later in the episode are getting deported.
Yes, okay.
So these are legal immigrants.
Right. That are all carrying guitars for some reason on this trip.
Who should not, be on the team. But they're in the team. And that, of course, is an important plot point later that we end up losing those players.
Gotcha. Yeah. I thought they were like the cheer section that brings guitars to play at games or something like that. I didn't really make the connection to them being actual players on this team. But perhaps I should have. I should have probably made that connection. But all right. So as Sam is about to get on the bus, thanks to the play that cost him the game, he gets to take care of the mascot, which is a pig.
A pig named Milo.
Right. And the team's name is the Mustangs.
Right.
And this is clearly not a Mustang. This is an actual pig. And I think Sam ends up questioning that, of course. But they're not going to carry around a Mustang, I guess.
Yeah. But it's cute to see a pig. And he even makes a reference like, not again.
Right.
Because, of course, he's had experience with pigs.
He has.
We go back to How the Test Was Won.
Right. That's an episode I mentioned very early on that I did not particularly care for. So Chucky on the bus seems to be a fan of Doc, who talks about a game that Doc played in as a kid that Chucky witnessed. Doc was in the majors at one point, and Chucky makes reference to him being in the show, and he's one of the few people that Chucky knows that was actually in the show. He takes a sip of an alcoholic beverage, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but Neil McDonough, he does a pretty great job in this episode of being, a guy you kind of like who's also kind of an asshole at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, he does a very good job. It's very easy to just make this guy someone you don't like at all. But he does a good job making him a character that you do actually end up caring about. So, yeah, he takes a sip of an alcoholic beverage. He offers it to Sam. Sam ends up declining. And he mentions that his father was the one that taught him how to pitch. And that, of course, turns out to be a lie.
Yeah, he tells this whole story about his dad, that he'd almost made it to the majors. And that's why Chucky says he really needs to do good in this playoff game to impress his dad.
Now, why would he come up with that lie? What is the point of that exactly?
I think it's probably a lie he's been telling himself his whole life. Like he's invented this father figure that he never had.
Okay. So, at a stop, at a restaurant, Sam and Chucky bond some more before he drunkenly pisses off another member of the team, and this quickly escalates into a fight that the coach ends up breaking up. And he seems about to threaten Chucky that he's going to throw him off the team, and Chucky says, belligerently, like, yeah, right, you're not going to do that because I'm the best pitcher on the team. And this is where Al makes his first appearance at the 10-minute and 20-second mark as Chucky leaves the restaurant and walks through Al. How rude. And we have Lily coming down the stairs, hopefully soon to determine that we are boring, as she predicted.
Hi, puppy girl.
But anyway. So, walking the pig, Al fills him in on what he's there to do. He's basically, the host's name is Doc, who quit after his rookie season because he hit a guy with a pitch who ended up dying. Ziggy says there's an 89% chance he's there to help get Doc back to the major leagues. All right, I'm going to ask, why does this make sense to anyone?
Right.
Why is Sam more equipped to win a baseball playoff game than Doc was?
That was the same issue the last time we played baseball.
Right.
Sam wasn't even a baseball player. He's a basketball player.
Right.
If you leaped him into a basketball player, I mean, maybe I could buy that a little more because at least he has experience. Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah.
But,
it's not really what he's there to do, but everybody seems convinced that's what he's there to do.
And, they'll blame it on Ziggy being caught up on semantics later. Because, I mean, I guess, that is what he does, sort of.
Right.
But, yeah, it is kind of silly. He's 35 years old, which is, pretty up there for a ball player.
Right.
And
Sam's probably about in his 40s, so he's not like he's younger than Doc.
Right. Yeah, it's... one of those things you can't look too hard at.
Right. Al brings up Chucky, or I think Sam does, saying he's a talented guy and also the angriest person he's ever met. Al asks him, so you like him? And Sam isn't sure about that, but he says he reminds him of someone. And Sam asks Al to have Ziggy do some digging on him. In the clubhouse, the coach sends him to the owner's office. Sam doesn't know where that is, and the coach suggests no more headfirst sliding into third base or whatever. And Sam goes and sees the owner. This is Margaret, played by Marie Cheatham. That's my best guess in that pronunciation. She has 98 acting credits, including a 372 stint on Days of Our Lives, the soap opera. Sam asks, how about a drink? Sam refuses, but the drink is actually for her. The owner heard the game on the radio, and we learned that Doc has basically been sleeping with her. I'm sure that's very enjoyable for him.
Well, I mean, Doc's sleeping with her and her daughter.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Is he actually sleeping with the daughter, or is his daughter just trying to seduce him?
I mean, if she just comes right in the locker room and starts taking her clothes off,
yeah,
I feel like there's already a history there.
Right. So speaking of which, that sort of reminds me of a Kevin Costner movie called Bull Durham, which had Susan Sarandon playing a woman who basically picks a player to sleep with during the season and help improve their baseball performance. And there was also a character that was a daughter of that character that would also sleep around and eventually would marry one of the players. That sort of reminds me of this episode a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so, so they have an understanding, and it's not something that Sam is overly enthusiastic about, but she reminds him of the terms. Basically, sleep with me, and I will let you play in these big games and have a career. She asks, okay. She leaves the office, and he ends up running into Chucky, who thought the owner might have been onto them and Bunny sleeping together. So she's just sort of sleeping around with everyone, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think Chucky knows that, though.
No, I hope not. Not yet, anyway. And then we learn that Doc sleeps on a cot in the clubhouse. that looks really uncomfortable. And this is something that Sam does not enjoy. He narrates how he's going to basically that he doesn't even know how Doc plays. He sleeps on this cot and then somehow manages to play baseball. And then he says he's not sure how he's going to convince anybody that he's an actual pitcher, which is when Al appears wearing a baseball uniform.
Yeah, his old Navy baseball jersey.
And he was apparently a starting pitcher for the Navy. And Sam asks him the question that we frequently ask, is there anything that you haven't done? And I
think the answer is no.
No, pretty much not. Al doesn't know why the game is so important, but Sam tells him there's a scout that's going to be at the game. Chucky is all hyped because he thinks he's going to get his big chance. But Doc pitched in that game. It was a playoff game. And during the game, he got hurt towards the later innings of the game. And he ended up giving up a 2-run home run. Sam thinks he slept his way into the game.
Well, he pretty much knows it at this point.
Right.
Al says, well, that's what you have to do. You have to get in the game because you're here to impress that scout. So do what you got to do.
And there's this little comic beat where Al mistakenly believes that he slept with the coach. Instead of like the actual owner, the female owner. And then, he gets that clarified for him. So Al is basically all in on this plan. Oh yeah, sleep with the coach, do what you're here to do and leave. But Sam does not want to do it. The owner ends up gives him the willies, and it's not someone that he wants to sleep with. And yeah, I wouldn't want to either. But I should point out that there's only a 14-year age difference between Sam and the actress who plays the owner. I actually checked into that because I was curious.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's... I mean, he does say that she gives him the creeps, but I mean, he's never eager to go into that position in any league.
Right.
So.
And either way, this is not a good situation regardless of age, because this is still technically harassment. There's a clear power dynamic problem here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The other problem is Sam doesn't know how to pitch, and Al ends up teaching him and compares holding a baseball to holding a woman, and Sam of course gives him some crap for that.
Yeah, he says to treat the ball like a woman, not a hand grenade.
Right.
But the advice works because Sam is able to get a pretty good pitch off after taking his advice.
But then they see Chucky pitch, and it's very impressive. It's clear he has a lot of talent, but according to Al, he's going to get caught sleeping with Bunny and get kicked off the team and never play baseball again. Now, he basically got blackballed or something. I'm not sure why he couldn't go somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, she's probably pretty powerful, right? And influential.
I guess so. Sam thinks it'll kill his father, but then we learn his father abandoned him when he was very young. Chucky was in fact lying about his dad. He wonders what would happen if they didn't get caught, and this seems pretty impossible because it's not like they're hiding it. They're openly flirting and carrying on the baseball field, so that can't be a secret. I mean, they're not doing anything to really prevent them from getting caught, it doesn't seem. This is basically when Margaret invites Sam to a dinner party. Oh, but basically, Michael Belzerio's character, Billy, comes out onto the field and tells him that to go to
that she wants to see him again. And they go over Doc's history, and she clears her desk. She's ready to get down to business right now.
Right.
But he's like, I gotta go do something.
Right. And so, she ends up inviting him to a dinner party, and he reluctantly agrees. And basically she says, well, I guess we have our starting pitcher then for the playoff game.
Yeah, and listening at the door is Billy.
Now, it's interesting that so first he walks in on this girl stripping for Sam.
Right.
Doesn't say anything about that. And then he misses the whole other context of what was going on that he was listening in on.
Yeah. So his takeaway was that Doc's going to start in the game. Goes and blabs that to the whole locker room, including Chucky. Maybe he's just used to the way things work around here.
I guess so. And Chucky overhears this and looks very, very disappointed. Sam walks with Al, and Al thinks that Sam did what he needed to do. Sam ends up asking about Chucky's dad, and Al ends up lying and say that he knows nothing.
And it's a really great scene here because Ziggy starts going crazy.
Yep.
And with all of our hand link noises.
This is an example of not hearing Ziggy, but Ziggy very much being a character.
Ziggy was very much a character in this scene. She didn't want Al lying to Sam. Mm-hmm. So the hand link is going cuckoo crazy.
Yep.
And Al's trying to ignore it and say, no, we don't know anything. And, Ziggy's just like, stop lying, tell him the truth.
And then Sam is like, you found him, and why are you lying to me? And basically Al's like, he didn't want him to be distracted from the mission, which, Al was wrong about the mission once again. Sam is right about the mission.
And this is a really good example of, like, setting it up the idea that Sam is capable of leaping without Ziggy's help.
Right.
I mean, he's proved that throughout the series, that he has just really good instinct about these things.
Right. And apparently the dad changed his name. Sam goes and sees him and recognizes him as being at the game the other day. And I already mentioned that he's Casey Sanders and all that stuff, so I'm moving on from that.
Casey Sanders, not Peter Jason.
Yes. Oh, and the Justified episode that he appeared in with Neil McDonough, even though they didn't actually share a scene together, was When the Guns Come Out. That's a season 3 episode. He wants to talk to him about Chucky, and he's trying to convince him to tell his son the truth. And he says that Chucky is a confused, angry kid that is ruining his life, and he thinks that his dad's absence is probably the reason why. But his dad doesn't think he has anything to offer him. He doesn't have a job. He's poor.
Yeah, and he tells Sam a story about his dad,
right,
who ended up killing himself because he couldn't support his family.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is kind of what influenced him. He left Chucky and his family because he didn't have a job, couldn't support them, and really honestly thinks that they were better off without him, which is really sad.
Yeah. But Sam basically he asks, well, don't you want to know your son? And his dad brings out the book, which has all the clippings from all his games. And Sam says, this is just numbers. Like, you don't actually know your son. And basically he tries to argue some more, gets shut down. And Sam says to him that at least he has a scrapbook. Chucky has absolutely nothing.
Yeah, except these fake stories he made up. And, the fact that his scrapbook exists, that he does go to all the games, it shows that he cares about his son.
Yeah.
He's not just, he is an absentee father, but he's not just like, oh, I forgot I have a family.
Right.
He just honestly thinks that his son's better off without him.
Yeah.
And he needs someone to convince him that, you have something to offer.
Right.
You don't have to, it doesn't have to be financial support.
Right.
To be a father.
Mm-hmm. So, Al thinks that Sam should just tell Chucky himself, but Sam doesn't think that's a very good idea. He gets rejected, and that just basically, he's not there to make things worse. He's trying to make things better. But he thinks that he can keep Chucky on the team, and that he will stay in baseball if he does so.
Right.
And so he goes out to try and do that.
Because remember, the reason he gets kicked off the team is because he gets caught with Bunny. So he says all he's got to do is just stop him from seeing Bunny.
Right.
That should be easy.
And Al is all like, oh, he's completely forgotten why he's here. Like, I knew this was going to happen. And he's talking to Ziggy, presumably. But Chucky is not in the mood to talk to Sam. He feels betrayed and angry by Sam for stabbing him in the back.
Because now he knows that, Doc did what he did to start in the game.
And Chucky brings up the fact that he looked into Doc's past and that he learned of the kid that he accidentally killed, the 21-year-old kid that he killed by a pitch. I don't think Doc would react as calmly as Sam does here. I think he might actually have gone after Chucky if he had actually been there. I think there might have actually been a fight rather than Sam's kind of sad reaction here.
You know what? I hadn't thought of this, but this does beg the question. How did this actually work out in the original history? Because he played in the game.
Yes.
Did they get kicked off the team the same way? Did everything really happen the same? Because you figure Billy would have still overheard that conversation. Everything, has Sam changed anything, really? I
think so, yes. And the reason I think that is because Doc would not have been as invested in Chucky and trying to find his dad and all that stuff. And I don't think he would have gone and talked to Chucky in that moment like Sam does here, because he's not trying to do anything. So I'm not sure that and I don't think Doc would have gone to Bunny's house to get Chucky.
Right.
So only Chucky would have been kicked off the team, not Doc.
Okay. Fair. Gotcha.
So basically, he ends up kind of changing things for the worse in a temporary way. But yeah. Where was I?
So Sam tells him he didn't have a choice, or he wouldn't have never gotten out of here, which is another great, double comment, right?
Right, yeah.
He's saying, hey, I need to leave. The only way that's going to happen is if I do what I'm told to do.
Right.
But, from Doc's perspective, the only way I'm going to get out of the minors and back to the majors where I belong is, by being a little backstabby.
Right. So Chucky ends up going to the locker room. Sam ends up following him to talk to Chucky some more. Chucky says he should deck him, decides he isn't worth it, but then does it anyway. Sam thinks he needs to go after him, and Al says he has a dinner party to go to. And hey, what is it with this kid anyway? Why are you so interested? And then we have a real doozy from Sam. This is a great scene, by the way.
This is the only good takeout from this episode for me, is that we get this story.
Yep. And that's because Chucky reminds him of Al. This takes Al off guard, and when I was watching this episode the first time, way back when, it took me off guard too. I did not see this coming. But the first time they met at the Starlight Project, he was trying to break open a vending machine with a hammer. Sam says he was drunk and angry, and the government wanted to wash him out of the project. But Sam stopped him because he knew, under all that booze and anger, was a terrific person. Now that's a bit of backstory, a bigger piece of backstory than we've gotten up to this point. Yeah. We've certainly hinted at his alcoholism before, but we didn't get that deep into it like we do here.
And specifically about, when did they meet? And how did these two people come to, be these best friends?
Al quietly asks if he thinks Chucky is a terrific person too. Sam doesn't know, but he feels like he deserves a chance to find out, and asks, don't you think so too? And apparently Al agrees because he helps him find Chucky. Chucky is laying on Bunny's bed, passed out. He's a drunk, apparently.
And Sam snuck into Bunny's room through a window, by the way.
Yes.
Even though he does have an invitation to be in the house today, so I'm not sure why he snuck in.
Were they going to be at the house or somewhere else?
They were having dinner at the house, I thought.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
So he's literally standing her up to break into her house.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So Sam tries to get him out. Bunny ends up coming in and hits on him. Man, this woman has no loyalty whatsoever. Sam stops her and convinces her to help him, but then Margaret interrupts. And so now they are both kicked off the team. Next day, Royce D. Applegate is announcing the game, or what the game that is about to take place. Chucky goes and sees Sam and apologizes for being way out of line, and they seem to part on good terms. Margaret joins Sam with Bunny in tow and rubs in the fact that he will be missing out on his chance to play in front of a scout. Al appears to Sam, asking him why isn't he getting ready, assuming Sam smoothed things over because he's still pitching in the game.
Yeah, according to the current history.
And Billy, whose main role in this episode is just to inform Sam that he needs to be somewhere, tells him that he needs to get to the locker room right away. And apparently the reason is an immigration issue. The immigration officers, aren't moved by the coaches, but this is baseball. With those players gone, there isn't enough players.
Yeah, so he's here to detain the Sanchez brothers, and there's only going to be 8 players left, and you need 9 to play, is that right?
Well, yeah, because there's 9 positions in, baseball, so you definitely need 9 players at least, and you should have a few more than that.
And the immigration officer is played by David B. Maccabee, who's also known as Mac McReady.
Okay.
Changed his name in his career at some point. He was in one episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh. Did you happen to make note of which one?
I did not.
Okay.
Star Trek stuff.
Right, yes. Okay. So, Margaret tries to reinstate Chucky, but he won't do it without Doc. And Margaret eventually ends up agreeing. And basically Sam is going to pitch the game now. And Chucky is going to end up in the outfield.
Yeah, and this is where my notes say, baseball happens.
Yes, and I just say, the game goes on. Al appears to tell Sam that he's been tracking the game and everything is proceeding exactly the same. Sam throws another pitch with the same results as the original game.
Yeah, and it's funny that he doesn't seem to have any actual influence on changing anything.
You would think so.
It's a little weird, right? That would happen.
They don't even like say something like, "Oh, well, your brain waves must be matching with Doc's or something."
That would have been a good explanation.
But they don't even say that. They don't give any explanation to that.
You just happen to be pitching exactly the same way that's leading to the hits happening exactly the same way.
Right. Yeah. So Sam calls time and takes himself out of the game. Al objects, saying that he's taking a hell of a risk here, but Sam ends up handing the game over to Chucky.
Right, because he figures, I can't be here just to repeat history, so I have to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledging the fact that, yes, you have to make a change in a leaf in order for it to make sense that you're on a leaf.
Right.
Unlike, a few times where we've had issues where, what changed? Nothing changed.
Right. So Sam goes to the outfield, and Chucky's dad is in the stands looking very happy about this chain of events. The game proceeds.
More baseball happens. That's my next note.
Chucky does very well, but the last batter gets one deep. Sam climbs on the fence and manages to make the final catch to end the game and as a win for their team.
Yay, they win.
Yay!
It took me a minute to even comprehend that's
what
where
happened.
We landed. We won. Okay.
Yes, we won. Be excited. All right. So the Yankees scout comes in. And you mentioned he was played by
Peter Jason.
Peter Jason, okay, and gives Chucky a chance to show some more. He's not going to give him a chance to go to the Yankees right away. He's going to stick around and watch some more games.
He's going to watch the championship game, and Ziggy says that he's going to end up in the majors in 6 months.
Sweet. And meanwhile, the scout. Offers Sam a pitching coach job.
Yeah, so Chucky's the one who asks about Doc,
right.
Which is cool. Like, hey, they became pretty good friends. Like, he's literally, like, asking about Doc. Hey, you gonna bring him too?
Right.
Like, we're best friends now. So yeah, he says there's not much call for a 35-year-old rookie with a bum arm, but because of the call that he made to take himself out of the game, that was impressive, and that is exactly what he would want in a pitching coach.
And apparently, that's what Ziggy realizes that Sam was there to do all along.
Yeah, and then he says, "Oh, it was semantics, He wasn't supposed to go play in the majors. He was just supposed to go work in the majors."
Gotcha. All right. So Al says it's time for Sam to leap, but then Chucky's dad walks in, and Sam realizes there's just a little bit more to do. Sam introduces him and Chucky, and there's an awkward conversation, and I think Chucky might instinctually know who this man actually is.
Yeah, I think it took him a beat. Yeah. And then there was this moment of recognition on his face. And he ends up inviting him to go for a cup of coffee.
Chucky leaves with him. Al says everything works out. But Chucky comes back real quick and tells Sam that it was a heck of a catch and throws the ball to Sam, which is very reminiscent of that moment in Genesis.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's funny that we covered this after we covered that episode. And Sam ends up leaping after catching the ball.
Yeah, and he told Al right before that maybe he should have played baseball instead of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just hit on some of these character actors that we didn't mention.
Okay.
Our mirror image was played by Owen Rutledge.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. We have a character named Jorge, played by Juan Garcia. I'm assuming that's one of the brothers that was deported.
That's a good bet.
Riker, I'm not sure who Riker is, but he was played by Chuck Thick. And most of his IMDb credits are other baseball things.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably, there because he was a baseball player and was able to actually, play ball.
Oh, that's cool.
Umpire number 1, who... We've talked about this last time we talked about the baseball episode, is the same person who played the umpire in Genesis Part 2, and that's Hank Robinson. And again, his IMDb has dozens of baseball films.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's interesting that there's such niche work in acting. I guess it makes sense that you have to be able to throw a ball if you're gonna appear in all of these things where they're playing ball.
I'm not sure if I actually looked into him, but I think I might have, and I think I did find him as actually having been a baseball player at one point in the major leagues. So
cool.
Yeah.
The Eagles manager, that's the team they're playing at the end there. He was played by Russell Lunday. And the scorekeeper was played by Brandon Loomis, who was actually in another episode.
Oh, what episode?
He played young Jack Stone in Dreams.
Okay, and we're going to be covering that episode in a little while.
Yeah.
I think we got half a season worth of episodes before that episode.
So lots of people, lots of baseball.
So I guess for the time being, I mean, we have nothing new for a while. So we'll probably cover at least the next 5 episodes and then maybe do something like Under the Dome or something along those lines. The next episode up is Hurricane.
Yes.
I think I mentioned that in the 35th anniversary special, that's not a favorite episode of mine.
I probably like it more than this one.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, again, I can't be here for the sports episodes. It's really hard for me.
Yeah, I think I mostly skip it upon rewatch. I think I found it boring as a kid.
I'm trying to remember what my opinion of Hurricane is. I mean, it's not a fairly memorable one for me.
I looked into AlicePlace.com, the messaging board, and there was some support for that episode, but I think it mostly comes from one person. There's one person who was commenting a lot about how they really liked that episode, and I think that might actually be someone who's on the Facebook pages that also appeared in the Quantum Leap podcasts. I think something that the Matt Dale special, yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember his name.
Well, we'll have to gather that for when we actually talk about it next time.
Yeah. So, yeah. I guess that's it for this episode.
Yeah. So, next time you hear from us, we'll be talking about Hurricane and who knows what other goodies we'll bring along the way.
Right.
We don't know yet.
Right. Yeah. We don't really have a solid plan as of now. But you'll definitely hear from us. If you have any suggestions about things that you want to cover, let us know, and we'll consider it, as always. All right, Stacie, we reached at.
My turn. I reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
And if you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can join one of my Corn Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Corn Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a way to support content creators such as ourselves. You can join the Corn Productions membership for 99 cents a month, which is a new way to support content creators. And of course, you can like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions, signing off.